Imagine getting a tooth infection 80,000 years ago. No antibiotics, no dentists, no painkillers stronger than a piece of willow bark you might not even know how to prepare. Just you, a throbbing jaw, and the very real possibility that this little infection is going to kill you. You wake up feeling like someone drove a hot coal into your gum. The side of your face is swollen. Every time your heart beats, it feels like someone's hitting your tooth with a rock. You haven't eaten properly in 2 days because chewing is pure agony. And in a world where calories mean survival, that's not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Today, you'd pop an ibuprofen, maybe call your dentist, and be back to normal in a week. But 80,000 years ago, that same pain could spiral into something much worse. A simple abscess could spread to your bloodstream. Fever would hit. Your body would burn energy you couldn't afford to lose. And in a small band of hunter-gatherers, if you couldn't keep up, the group couldn't always wait for you. So what did they actually do when they got sick? They didn't just lie down and hope for the best. Our ancestors were incredibly resourceful with what they had. They observed the world around them closely, plants, animals, patterns in nature, and they experimented. They remembered what worked last time someone got sick. They passed that knowledge through stories and demonstration because there was no other way to keep it alive. A bad cut? They'd pack it with certain mosses or leaves that seemed to stop bleeding or rot. Stomach pain? Certain barks or roots that calmed things down. They used heat, cold, rest, and movement in smart ways. But more than anything, they relied on something we've mostly lost today: the deep knowledge of their local environment and the support of their small, tight-knit group. Because back then, being sick didn't just affect you, it affected everyone around you. Let me show you how they actually handled it and why some of their solutions were surprisingly effective, even if others were absolutely brutal. Let's get real about what sick actually looked like for them. A deep cut from a flint tool or animal bite could easily get infected. Without modern medicine, they turned to the natural world. They knew certain plants had power. Willow bark for pain and fever. It contains the same compound we use in aspirin. They'd chew it or make a weak tea. Certain clays and muds were packed onto wounds because they could draw out pus and toxins. Honey, when they could find it, was a miracle, antibacterial, and it sealed wounds like glue. They understood rest was powerful too. If someone was burning up with fever, the group might shelter them deeper in the cave or under better cover, keep the fire going strong, and take turns watching over them. Someone would bring water. Someone else might try to coax them to eat soft foods or broth if they had it. But here's the hard part. Not every sickness had a plant cure. Parasites were everywhere. Bad water could wreck your guts for weeks. Respiratory infections in cold, damp seasons could turn into pneumonia.
And dental problems. A rotten tooth wasn't just painful. They sometimes used sharp stones or bone tools to try and pull them. Imagine that without numbing. Some skulls from the period show evidence of people who survived crude extractions, chipped teeth, healed bone. That tells you how tough they had to be. And then there was the social side. In a small band of maybe 20 to 30 people, losing one member to illness was a big blow. They needed every hunter, every gatherer, every experienced elder. So sickness wasn't private, it was communal. The group would shift responsibilities. Healthy members hunted longer, gathered more, stayed closer to camp. They used storytelling and rituals, not just for comfort, but maybe to keep morale up. A sick person who felt supported might recover better. Hope itself was medicine. But there were limits. If someone got too weak or the resources were stretched too thin during a bad season, the group sometimes had to make impossible choices, not out of cruelty, but survival. This was the brutal math of living in deep prehistory. Still, the fact that we're here at all proves they were incredibly good at this. They figured out what worked through thousands of generations of trial and painful error. The infections that really scared them were the ones you couldn't see coming. A scratch that turned red and hot, spreading up the arm.
A fever that wouldn't break. An infected wound that started smelling sweet and rotten. The smell of tissue dying. These were the moments when everything they knew might not be enough. They had no concept of germs, but they understood bad air, bad water, and bad spirits in their own way. Some groups isolated the very sick, others used smoke from certain herbs they believed, and sometimes correctly, could cleanse the space. They watched animals closely, too. If a particular plant made a sick animal better, they remembered it. But the real hero in most recoveries wasn't any single remedy. It was time, care, and the incredible resilience of the human body. Our ancestors had robust immune systems shaped by constant exposure to the natural world. Many people survived things that would shock us today because their bodies had to be strong just to make it to adulthood. Still, death from infection was common. Archaeological evidence shows plenty of skeletons with signs of survived infections, and many more who clearly didn't. The ones who pulled through often carried scars, missing teeth, or stiff joints for the rest of their lives. So why are we still here? Because they were adaptable. They shared knowledge across generations. They supported each other when it mattered. And slowly, over tens of thousands of years, that collective wisdom grew. What started as "this leaf helped last time" became the foundation for the medicine we have today. Next time you pop a pill for a headache or get antibiotics for an infection, remember this: you're benefiting from a survival strategy that began with people huddled around a fire, chewing bitter bark, tending wounds with mud and honey, and hoping their loved one would make it through the night. We didn't just outsmart nature, we learned to work with it one painful lesson at a time. If you want to see how they handled other brutal realities of prehistoric life, let me know in the comments. And if this hit different, drop a like. It helps more people discover these stories from our deep past.